this July 28th, 2025, 5 p.m. meeting of the New Smyrna Beach Airport Advisory Board. My name is Jim Dempsey. I'm the chairman of the board. If I could ask everyone to please silence your phones. And I just found out the other night at a show that my alarm goes off if my phone ringer is silent. So now I silence my alarms, ringers, everything, okay, before I get into the meeting. We're going to do the roll call next. One thing I want to say is there's another meeting tonight. If you've been following the city website, the workshop for the charter, the city charter review committee, revision committee is going to be in here at 6:30. So we're going to have an expedited meeting tonight. We're going to move right along. We're going to get done no later than 6:10, 6:15 at the absolute latest so that we can give those folks time to come in here and get set up for their 6:30 meeting, okay? So usually when we have this 5 p.m. on Monday, there's no one following us and we can run over if we want, but we can't do that tonight. So before the roll call, I'd like to introduce Teresa Merck. Okay, everyone is familiar with Tammy Hall, who was the airport coordinator for many years, did an outstanding job, and ran the airport administration office like a taut ship. Okay, so Teresa, we're excited. She comes to the airport team from the code compliance group in the city of New Smyrna. She's got plenty of city experience. She knows how things work, so we're excited to have her here. So Teresa, if you go ahead with the roll call, we'll press on.
Thank you. Chair Dempsey?
Here.
Vice Chair Starley? Absent. Member Cottle?
Here.
Member Lester? Absent. Member Mabe?
Here.
Okay. All right, we're going to start off. Item 2 on the agenda is a presentation that we've got by Robinson Aviation. Robinson Aviation is a corporation, one of only a few that provides contract air traffic control services to the FAA. There are a number of airports across the United States, part of the National Aerospace Systems group that use contract air traffic controllers and tower management, and they are not direct FAA employees, but they report to the FAA, okay? And Stephen Smith is here to give us a presentation on our tower and recent activity that's been going on there. He's the Vice President of the FAA Contract Tower Program for Robinson Aviation. He came to us from Virginia, traveled down today, and we're very pleased that when we raised our concern that we would like to have someone from the contract tower company come in and speak to us, they sent a vice president who reports directly to the CEO of Robinson Aviation. So we applaud the response that we've gotten from Robinson with sending Stephen down here. With him is Scott Fansler. He's the ATC manager for our tower here at EVB, Jack Bolt Field. So we have both our tower manager and his boss, the tower program vice president here. So Stephen, if you would like to come up and begin your presentation, we can get going.
All right, good evening, and thank you, Chair Dempsey. Appreciate the invite from everyone on the board to come down here and represent Robinson Aviation. Like you mentioned, Robinson Aviation is one of the vendors that has the FAA contract tower program with the FAA. There's 262 towers out there in contract tower world, not including FAA towers. I am retired FAA in 2022. I've had over probably 40 years of air traffic control experience. And when both the chair and Arwen brought up the concerns about the tower, we immediately tried to come down and answer the question. I've been here once before, and I do try to travel. We have 105 towers in Robinson this year. We just got awarded here in February of 2025, and I now oversee contract towers from Puerto Rico all the way out to Saipan. And so dealing with time zones is probably one of my bigger challenges, but beyond that, that's what we have. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, back in January 8, 2024, we just got awarded in 2025, but the actually request for proposal came out in January 2024. So a lot of your bids, and when you bid these contracts, it's a 7-year contract. It was a screening request from the FAA. It's a 7-year competitive contract to bid this area. Now, Robinson has been serving this area, including New Smyrna Tower, for many years, and we have a great relationship with the community here and also the tower. It's a very busy tower. Florida is a very busy state for our traffic. As I mentioned before, there's 264 towers. We have a new one coming on board. This last award in 2024, they split up the area. We used to also oversee the Atlanta area, and the reason I brought it up because they went out and they did a request for proposal in a more of a side for a small business, and we're not a small business, so we could not bid the Atlanta area. So there's a lot of transition. Areas out in California, we also were awarded Arizona, Colorado, Saipan, Hawaii, down to the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and of course Texas, Louisiana, Florida. The original date from the proposal was to be submitted by February 2024. So all your numbers, all your data is based on 2023, really end of year, is what you're looking at, and before. You don't really look ahead, unless you have some really concrete information. And then it was submitted to change, was actually submitted to March of 2024. So we've actually met quite a bit from that time period getting ready for this proposal. It's very involved. I'm sure you've seen any kind of proposals for any airport. Imagine doing for contracts for 260 different things, 10 different areas. It's very complicated. It's very comprehensive to go with that. And it's a lot of rewriting, evaluation, rewriting, and stuff like that. Next slide, please. Again, our company, we're private, so a lot of our stuff is proprietary, and we try to be very careful on that. But to give you some idea of how we decide on what does New Smyrna Tower, how do we figure that out? What's our staffing? What's our past staffing? What do we look at? You know, it's very complicated. Like I said, the spreadsheets you use and the calculations you use, it's just multiple years to get involved. But major thing that I wanted to share with operational hours right here, right now you're 7 and 2,200. So you look at that as how many positions are in the tower? Oh, there's 2, okay. You know, what is complexity here? It's pretty complex here at New Smyrna. One runway is being closed right now with construction. You have a small runway all around 4,000 or 5,000 feet. Mainly there's still a lot of flight schools, especially that one flight school that has very busy, I forget the name of the company, I do apologize. But you look at all that stuff. So we do safety risk management and mitigations. And as we go through this, it's a revamp constantly over at the top. How do we want to bid these towers? Because remember, it's competitive too. We don't want to put too much. And the contract tower program is a safe method of doing air traffic services for a lot less money. And it's been proven by OIG's investigations, many reports. You could look at 2021 as the latest one. Again, they're doing another one. And so one thing that we look at for staffing is job shares. Now, New Smyrna Tower, they have the most job shares. And a job share would be, Eduardo and I both shared a 40 or 80 hour line evenly. So it'll be 40 hours me, 40 hours him, maybe 20 a week, that's a job share. The FAA does not allow part-time. Job shares are one of the things that our vendor does that no other vendor does. And a lot of, especially Florida, take advantage of the job shares because like Daytona is probably a big feed here coming out of Daytona FAA. They don't want to work full-time. They have pensions or they have childcare. They, whatever reason they have it. It really attracts a lot of new folks. In fact, all the facilities that we put in our bid that never had job shares, now they all have at least one line job shares. And when I say they have at least 5 lines of job shares here in New Smyrna, and we look at that as a mitigation piece. So if I'm normally working 20 hours a week and if Scott goes on leave that week, maybe I want to work and pick up that leave. If him and I share a job share, I'm required to pick up that. If there's different rules in job sharing, but maybe somebody else, maybe Chair Dempsey wants to take off, you know, or different, and then I want to cover work some extra hours, sure. For a family, I'll take care of you. Got to go to a wedding, no problem. So we cover hours that way that's why job share is probably one of the largest mitigation saving from costs, because otherwise you're using overtime and other issues. Because you don't want to be unsafe. You want to keep the actual staffing you have to work the tower during those hours. Next slide, please. I also here, this is actually FAA data. I broke it down to show some ranking reports, and I don't have the actual physical ranking because it's multiple years, but I just want to show you the number difference from the top and bottom. If you look at the bottom right of that, you'll see the total airport and tower operation. So the top line is 2024, the bottom line is 2023. And so you kind of look at what is actually, and this is a really good chart to tell me what is the actual story going down here. If you look at how many air carriers on the top row, you'll see there's 0. Okay, well, no figure. But if you look at flight schools, it kind of shows you where flight school activity goes. Is it a lot of VFR overflights? Obviously, you're on the coast. You're going to see a lot of banner tows, those type of things, parasails. They count up as those numbers. And every day what happens is the tower calculates this by hour. At the end of the day, they got to submit it to the FAA, and that's why it's calculated by year. And we look at these a lot when we're looking at numbers and operational numbers. What are the increases and anything like that? So as thing gets projected, like if you know for a fact that more flight schools are coming in so many months or something's changing there, we can always readjust it with the FAA and change staffing and change number based on projections and numbers. We have orders and directives to show how you do that, and it's just showing justification on those changes if those changes are so needed. And that's kind of what we look at. Next slide, please. This here is also, I looked at the different time periods. You can see the top graph, it's 01/24 to 7/15/2024, and vice versa to the other side. It's in 2025. It shows we actually went down in that time period. Now, I don't know why we went down. You'd have to look a little deeper. But as you look at the dates on that number, maybe it was more for whatever reason. Sometimes hurricanes change those numbers when you look at down here in Florida. But the 2024 hurricanes probably, not the hurricane season, but maybe one came earlier. But the question would be, why is it 10,000 ops less? You know, overall it's busier, but why in this 6-month period in that window? And so, like, if you want to change operational hours, the FAA directive says it's 3 to 4 months. So you have to look at that carefully before you make the request to the FAA. Because, like, if it's wintertime, like this is more of a snowbird area, so maybe that gets the numbers up higher, if that makes sense. You know, got to be careful when you make those submissions. Otherwise, they're going to look at that and they see a downgrade, they'll say, no, why is that number different? They'll look at those numbers. So that's why I try to pull things off in a sampling when we're looking at the discussion.
Can you go back to the prior slide, please? That one there, thank you. And perfect. Oh, there you go. Thank you. Sorry.
No, good. I want to also tell you what's going on in coming up. So as you all have probably heard once or twice or 3 times, the FAA's got a staffing crisis, right? So was hired back in 1988, and the FAA's had a staffing crisis since 1981 when President Reagan fired all the controllers. It's never really caught up. And so they've been really, and after the DCA disaster happened, which was my old area. I was the general manager of that area up there. A lot of those employees, my old employees. And so I'm very sensitive to the safety issues that get concerned. I hear it all around the country. We don't want another DCA. We hear it all the time. And nobody wants another DCA. I don't want anybody to go through that. And we have to make sure that we follow the correct safety rules, what we're giving, and never cut those things, and try not to drift. Controllers, aviation folks, all drift. It's what we do. You see, I can tell you how many airplanes land belly up would just freak you out in the FCT world. You never see that in the FAA world, that somebody would land without gear. But in the FCT, they're unprofessional. They forget that last-minute check. It's unbelievable to me. Why doesn't the tower see it? And I get mad because I say, why aren't you looking at the window to stop that airplane from landing with the belly up? I mean, it's stuff like that that you have to be good. We all tend to drift. We all have our heads down. We tend to do things like this. But this is what changes that are coming down the pipe right now. If you look at February 25 this past year, it actually was signed in July of 24, was a memorandum of understanding with the NACA union for FAA to get into trying to change things out. So they changed, in February came to be true that you have, I'm not going to go a little tech on you here, I do apologize. You have Collegiate Training Institute, they're called CTI schools. There's around 30 of them. You can look at the FAA site and you can see them. And the FAA collegiate trainings have been around probably in the 90s, they came out. When I came through, they weren't around. There were hiring stores. You can go get a degree, bachelor degree or associate's degree, Embry-Riddle, Daytona, I mean, all different things around here. These are CTI schools. Never were they allowed to be hired directly into FCTs. So they changed the technology, enhanced it with more technology, more simulation, and they called them enhanced CTI applicants. Now there's 7 that have been approved. Embry-Riddle's been approved, Tulsa, Oklahoma, to go TCC Community College, Vaughn College, like North Dakota. I mean, they're all over the place, and more will come. So once the FAA approves the enhanced CTI school, the student has to get an endorsement letter. Once they have completed and got the endorsement letter, they can then go apply to the FAA if they want to. They get accepted by the FAA. They don't have to go to the academy. They go directly to the airport, their field. Now they're allowing FCTs to hire them. Now, the challenge is FCT has never hired somebody who's never talked to an airplane at all. We don't have that. It's always been retired FAAers or military folks that have worked tower before. This is new. This is going to be new. We've had maybe one or two that's really tried to apply to us. We've had a couple schools that we're making partnerships with schools because we have students that are failing the test. They're not getting the right test. They're not getting endorsement letter, but they've done the school and they like to, how can I get in? Because if they go through FCT and go to FAA, it's called a previous experience bid. So now they don't have to go the regular application. They know they can go the other way into the FAA, which is fine with us. But this is new for us. This is going to be new for Scott and his team, and everywhere we talk about it, I bring it up. And every month I meet with the ATMs with I try to every month with a lessons learned telcon, and I talk about this. This is new for every one of us in the FCT world. We haven't trained somebody out of Embry-Riddle College with technology who's never spoken to an airplane before. Never done that. We've never trained that in the FCT. Definitely new. The other thing is going to be on January 9th when we also change our directives. This is called a CTO. It stands for Control Tower Operator Certificate. P is a partnership, and it's for like a technical school. Val Dawson have a school called Advanced ATC. They basically teach CTO schools like a technical school. You don't have to go to a CTI school. Now this is going to be even shorter than that. There can be a 10-week baseline school partnership. You go to Advanced ATC if they're approved. They go for 10 weeks. After 10 weeks, you can then apply to the FCT world. That's even less experience. It's kind of crazy that that's just the way, but this is what FAA is doing because they don't have bodies to come in and be air traffic controllers. It's not like you can go down and put up a sign and say, we need you now. It's a very difficult technical world. So we have to adapt to this in the FCT world. RVA, Robinson, has also put a waiver in to the FAA in one of the directives, the FAA Order 7210.3, saying that, okay, if you're approving this type of method to get hired in FCT or FAA, why can't I take that person who worked at Land and Tracon up and down for 25 years and never worked a tower? I want that person. I want to be able to hire that person because they'll get checked out quicker and maybe they want to work a tower, rather than somebody who's never talked to an airplane or somebody who's worked, like Scott said, he worked at Miami Center or Denver Center, never worked at an airplane. They're all en route, high altitude places, but they've got 30 years of experience of air traffic, work in terminal environments, know what a missed approach is, know what to do when someone has an emergency. Applicant students, not to criticize, it's a great start, but they don't have the experience level that we have had going through a system and getting that kind of experience. It's a really interesting path that's going on, but it's a need because there's not a lot of FAA controllers, and they're so understaffed, and they're changing. The other thing I wanted to bring up, and this may be a fact for New Smyrna, is on July 19, 2024, they signed an MOU, it came out in February 2025, and the directives requires a 10-hour break before the last end of your shift, before the beginning of your shift. Now, the interesting piece about this, if you look at the date, July 2024, our submissions had to be in by February 2024, so every vendor bid this 7-year contract without this rule. And so we brought it up. We said, hey, FAA, we have this MOU coming out, you change the directive with a 10-hour rule. None of our schedules were built with a 10-hour rule. What say you, And so they gave us a delay. It's coming, probably this fall is what I told Scott. Don't have an official date yet. We have our contractors working on doing assessment. And if you look at the 10 o'clock p.m. to 7 o'clock, it's definitely going to affect that. Robinson's position has been, if it needs to go up a body to accomplish these requirements, then we're going to need to put that we require a body. That's how that works. So it's possible that New Smyrna could get an extra body just because of that rule alone. And I brought that up to Erwin before. I just wanted to show this map. This shows you where our territories are now with the new bid that was awarded this year and the last year. You can see we now cover quite a bit of area across the country. We are one of the prime vendors, as is Midwest. And it's been a very busy transition from taking on existing towers, losing towers, gaining new towers, trying to get everybody, because we're also ISO, International Standard Organization certified, which the other vendors are not, which takes us another higher level of safety and audits to make sure that we are following our lists and we're not drifting. And when we do drift, we go out and we attack it pretty aggressively to make sure that we train everybody, refresh everybody, and make sure they've all known that. And that's it. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a few questions, if you don't mind.
Oh,
Okay.
of course.
Jim, who was the tower manager before, was very engaged with us and the airport management, the operations, the airport advisory board. He attended just about every meeting. He would be back in the corner of the room right there. And we're glad to see Scott take over, but we're a bit concerned. Are we down a person from Jim leaving, or have you folks replaced that person on staff, or where do we stand relative to where we were a year ago?
Yeah,
as tower
you're asking overall staff. Again, I can't get too deep into the proprietary information.
I'm just
but
want to know if
I don't
we,
think that's proprietary.
No, I'm going to get to that. I'm just going to tell you how.
Yeah.
So to answer your question about Jim leaving as an ATM, Jim has been replaced by Scott. The question you lost is you lost a full-time person and back in a new award. So you go back to what we did with our calculation of parameters. It showed with the job shares that we would not have a need for that on that issue. It
Okay.
showed that that body did not need to be replaced when we bid this job back in '24. So
my understanding is that the minimum requirement for staffing for an FCT is 4, right?
that's not correct. No.
That
I'm sorry, for a tower?
tower,
Yeah, 4, it's 1 ATM and 4 bodies, correct?
right, okay. So we're meeting the minimum requirements?
Yes, you have, well, as job shares, you have quite a bit of excess in job shares.
Okay,
So that's where it covers the mitigation side of it. So you always can split the schedules. And to be honest with you, Chair Dempsey, let me say something really important that I think everybody, if we're wrong, then we need to adjust it. If we're incorrect on that number, if we all believe the community here, because we serve the community, we don't serve Robinson, you know? So if we all believe that, listen, this is a concern, we're not covering shifts, we have, I'm down in California, I don't want to get too deep into it, but they're very understaffed. We're talking 2 people per towers, it's very difficult. But if we feel that we're wrong, then we need to justify it and make those changes and submit them to the FAA as soon as possible.
okay, because our concern is that we're just not in a remote local tower, okay? We have Daytona's controlled airspace sitting right on top of us,
Yes, sir.
okay? We have a flight school here. We have Embry-Riddle's flight school. We've got lots of flight schools that come to New Smyrna, okay? We have, as you mentioned, the banner towing up and down the beach all the time. It's not just a simple little community airport that is using contract tower services. When you folks at RVA did your analysis of staffing for our tower, were you just looking at the numbers on the screen of ops and the time, or did you consider all those factors as well?
Oh, absolutely. It's pretty complex. Multiple factors are considered. You know, when you look at what the old contract had, it's a little different than the new contract. The old contract, when they had numbers, the ATM was not allowed to work more than 25% of the time. So if your number was, I'm going to make up numbers, if your number was 4, it's 4.25. That's what your numbers are.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. When you do the model and you start sort of looking at all that calculations in, the configuration, operation, do they have radar, don't have radar, do they have banner tows, do they have overflights, all that data is compiled into one huge, what's basically a complex spreadsheet, but it is. So you look at those numbers, you look at the couple past years, you look at possible growth, you look at anybody factor, and you look at that 0.25, and you look at, okay, now what are we doing? We can't have the ATM part of the watch schedule, but we can use them to get currency, to do, now they're the designated control tower operators, and we use them all the time from overtime mitigation, and of course you got your job shares. In fact, one of the bid schedules that we based when we submitted our schedules, a lot of times we show the ATM more, you would show lighter during a weekday because the ATMs should be available during the weekday, not necessarily the weekend. Now, whether they do that schedule, that's really up to them, what's best for your community, but that's how we bid things like that way. Because we wanted to show how are we mitigating attrition, how are we mitigating a possible leave vacation, how are we doing it to make sure that this tower has the appropriate means with the 2 positions that they're operating from 7 to 2, before and after, obviously. You want to make sure they're getting breaks, are they not having breaks, you know? All those different factors go into that. And then you come out with finally a decision-making number is what happens. So it is taken in consideration. Is it perfect? Probably not. You know, if it needs to be adjusted, then we need to go there and show why it needs to be adjusted.
going for a minute if it's okay with you guys.
Yeah, when you're done, yeah.
Okay.
I have questions probably following yours, but I'll see, let's see if yours cross over mine.
When this became a concern for us, I went back and did a little bit of research. And I read the DOT, Department of Transportation's Inspector General Report of 2021, talking about concerns with staffing at FCTs, okay, and FTCs, sorry. Which one's correct? FC?
They went from 1 to 3 to 1 to 4. Is what
Yeah.
that was identified in that
And
report, yeah.
there was a 2021 report that the Inspector General did that raised some questions about how contract towers were being staffed, the formulas that we're using for staffing, et cetera, and it raised some concerns. I read another report from the National Air Traffic Controllers Association raising concerns about tower staffing. The last thing I came up with was the Section 605 of the 2024 FAA Reauthorization Act that mandated a review of contract control tower staffing. Are you familiar with that?
Absolutely. I've flown now down to 5 or 6 towers with the OIG, asking all these questions very similar to what your concerns are, because
Okay.
if in that report also, not to interrupt you, but in that report also, it talks about the FAA was never tracking this, was never tracking how they come up with these numbers.
Right.
And the accountability has totally changed, but how
So
they
I
track
did a little look back at what generated that, and it was feedback to congressmen, women, Congress, that people were concerned about the staffing of these contract towers, and so Congress put in the FAA Reauthorization Act, the Section 605, that requires every contract tower company, there's, what, 3 or 4 of you guys?
Well, now there's 4.
4 now.
Yeah,
okay.
4 now, primes.
That are doing this to actually, within some specified period of time, you have to show your rationalization for the staffing that you have. Okay.
Yeah, we do reviews with our staffing. We have to do monthly reports on our staffing,
Okay.
quarterly reviews.
I guess my question is have you met the requirements of 605 with the FAA, and have they accepted your rationale for your staffing?
Yes, yeah, yes. We meet constantly. It's always the concern by FAA more, at least with RVA, is California.
Yeah.
But they were understaffed. Florida is not even on their radar, nothing like that. We get questions, we report up, but nothing like to the questions that you're getting to. Their concerns are more into the California that we got awarded because of staffing issues before.
Okay.
But you're right, I think that they were getting more involved in not tracking. FAA was not going back and saying it, because there's penalties now in our contract, that if you don't meet a certain percent of efficiency, you're going to be withhold hours, and it's at the end of the year, but it's reviewed now quarterly. It's every 3 months, I believe.
My understanding of that 605 section that required this audit was that you had to do that with the Department of Transportation IG.
Well, the department, I don't work for the Department of I work for Robinson, but the FAA has to be able to report to the Department of Transportation. I went with OIG, and because they were going to different facilities of mine,
Okay.
I went to about 7, I think, so far.
Okay.
And they've asked follow-up questions, but it was about training also. It was about training, staffing, all those questions. Is there enough? And if you don't mind, I'd like to share a sidebar with you about an interesting piece. I don't want to take your panel's time, but
Okay.
the board's time. But I was at the United States Contract Tower Association. I'm on the board, and it's AAAE is the lobby. I call it the lobbyist group. I'm sure you're a member. I'm sorry, but anyways, Charlottesville Airport was near me, and I got to meet the airport manager. Really nice guy, Jason. And they run about 120,000 takeoffs and landing. And he talked to me about a very similar question about staffing. They're having trouble filling in staffing in Charlottesville. And I'm only 15 minutes from the airport. We're joking a little bit about it. But I said, it's interesting when I was in the FAA, if you take places like Richmond, I said Christopher Newport, Manassas, all were my old facilities, FAA facilities. And the staffing compared them to any contract tower is night and day. They have 1 ATM, 2 FLMs, sometimes 3 FLMs. So they're 24, 11, 12, 14 controllers. And they can't get staffed, obviously. Contract towers were always another way of saving money, basically, especially sponsor control FAA towers. Now, is the staffing right?
Well, we're very
Sometimes.
glad that the Department of Transportation, the FAA is putting the focus on it, because anytime, the FAA has their primary objective is safety in every sense, and when you get to a contract tower, you throw the bottom line element into that. Okay, you guys have to make money. Okay, so I was glad to see that there was the DOTIG, Air Traffic Controllers Association, others were keeping this in the forefront, that staffing is a concern. Okay. Did you have a question?
I did.
First of all, thanks for coming.
Sure.
All right, and this is probably not the first time you've had a board question you on contract work. Likewise, we would probably question any FAA directive, but again, our concern was collaborative as not only a board, but as an airport in regards to safety, and also from employees that have voiced their concerns with this board. It's not just us voicing, but questions I have, and without getting into your proprietary information, and I say that respectfully, not making a jest of that, because I'm a business guy, I understand that. In regards to the shared employment, or the shared hours, if you will, when that calculation is done for those shared hours, let's say you have and that's a complex thing because you have a limited staff, you have vacations, you have sickness. How can we feel good as an airport that with the staffing that we currently have, and compared to what we previously had, which I don't believe is proprietary, I believe those numbers are a number of staffing, we're not asking to get into how you calculate, we're just asking for what were the numbers previously to what they are now, and losing Jim like we did. My question is, how did the shared hours come into play with this year moving forward? And I appreciate you showing a trend. I think that was great. 23 showed an increase, 23 to 24. Beginning of this year shows a little bit of a decrease. No, who knows why? That's in your favor, and that's great. I'm for that, great. My concern is, as an airport, how do we feel good about the shared staffing and the management of the contractor managing employees within and outs, vacations, sickness, and management, to make sure that there is good oversight for safety for our community?
Great question. First of all, I'm not happy about numbers, so I didn't mean to, if I came off that way, I was just showing factual numbers. He said, my favor, it's not in my favor. I serve you guys, it's not in my favor. So let's make that clear. But reference Jim. Jim's a great guy. He's radio TM. I'm glad that he came to your board meetings, and hopefully Scott will be coming to yours in the future. Jim didn't work that much, so his numbers were below the 0.25. So, he did cover. What I would say to you is that every facility has a family culture because they're small. They know, at least in Florida, Texas, Louisiana, they know if I don't want to, I'm taking off, I'm going to mess up, the heck with you. Heck with, Tim, I'm done, They don't have that attitude. They back each other up knowing that you have a wedding to go to. You have a cruise to go to. They know the fact that this is important to you and your family. So they work together as a small family should work together. I think that leadership was established before Jim, on the Jim, and I saw it today with Scott. And I was talking to Jeffrey Messer, who's leaving us here in a couple weeks, I guess, a couple days, and has already been replaced. So obviously this is a hot place in this community that people want to work. And the reason they want to work here is because of that culture to make sure that they have this high standard of making sure it's safe and that they are backed up, that there is not a vacancy. It's a lot different in some other places that you see. In fact, I was talking today about, again, California. I don't see it there. They don't seem to care the fact that they don't realize that the whole community can't do flying schools. That there's not even it's their problem, You don't see that over here or anywhere really in Florida. I've seen a couple places isolated, but not much. But back to your number, if that number, and again, we say it's one, Jim was replaced. It was really another person that was full-time that was not replaced. So they had 2 full-times and they had 5 job shares before. So it's basically 7 lines. How you manage that line, not everybody wants to share a job share. We see it across the here. Here they do. They love job shares. When you look at that and you look at all the calculations and everything, that 0.25 with Jim, you kind of figure out, all right, where do I need to go? And the decision was made based on whatever reasoning, configurations, all the numbers, that it was not, the job shares could cover that loss and that fractional loss. And the fact, again, if it were wrong, then we should change it. So far, I haven't seen anything from a budget point of view, nor a safety point of view. You got some really good controllers here. They're very serious. They really take this job overwhelmingly serious, which is great to see. I saw it last time I was here, and I'm sure everybody feels the same way. You don't really, they're polite. They're not, yelling at, we were talking about it earlier. I said, I was there since around 1 today, and people that get burned out, they get snippy. These are unprofessional pilots, and they get really snippy, and you can see it that, okay, you're done. You don't need to be working airplanes anymore. These guys love it. They enjoy
and
talking to them.
I will agree. Our tower workers are unbelievable. I just flew in. I fly in and out of here a lot. They're phenomenal, literally phenomenal. So I do feel like we've had a great team. We continue to have a great team. Moving forward with the CTO, how does that, I'm guessing a CTO employee is going to be considerably less cost.
Oh, you're talking about the trainee? I'm sorry. It's called a enhanced CTI or a CTOP partnership, if hired. Nobody's been hired yet. No, in the contract tower world, it's by hours, by employee.
Okay.
They're all the same page, really different than the FAA.
Okay.
Oh, what do you fly? I'm sorry. Well, you said you flew.
How will that type of hire affect your decisions moving forward for our tower?
Well, I'd be very cautious to hire somebody with no experience. I would say that Advanced ATC is good. They're a friend of mine. It's a good school. They run Valdosta Tower, runs around 30, 40,000 takeoffs and landing. They also have Craig Field and Selma. I've been to both places. They do a great job teaching baseline. There were 2 young ladies that wanted to go to Polaca. Tried to talk them out of it. We were very concerned. Talked to the manager, okay, let's be careful here. These are people who have really got very limited experience. Well, they did phenomenal, and now they're hired at the FAA. So they're leaving us. One's already left, one's leaving shortly. So we've seen about 4 people out of the schools come and do well, but that's the entire program. It's not the 10-week short program. So I'm more in lines of taking them somewhere that is probably not in New Smyrna. The area manager that Scott works for is Michelle Correll. She'll be in conversation. They work together on who they hire, and they'll be very cautious of that. But it gets to a point, like in Castle, California, they only down. It's got a person who worked only helicopters. It's a small, not a busy airport, and it gets to the point. Well, do you want to be short another year? I mean, it's the first bite we got for Castle. Can we train this person with helicopter experience? Probably, but it's only 30 or 40,000 takeoffs and landing. It's not 180. That's a big difference.
Arvin, did you have concerns that you wanted to ask as the airport manager?
Well, I want to echo what everybody said, and I want to thank you very much for coming, because I know, it was a kind of a difficult topic. We were obviously concerned. I think most of them been addressed, but I want to thank you for coming. I think, the concern remains for me is, we are down a person. And I think that the dip in traffic is, very, very likely and mostly attributed to the construction activity. So, that's been difficult. There's been some days when we haven't had a runway. If the runway was closed, that's affected, the user's ability to, use the airport. So, but, up until, this year, we saw one of our highest years last year, and that was accompanied by a reduction in staff. So I think that's kind of were we overstaffed before? I don't know that I completely understand that.
I think that's a fair question.
Yeah.
So again, the staffing numbers and calculations are based on the end of 2023 numbers, not the end of 2024. So because we submitted it in February of 24. We were awarded in November of 24. So your 24 numbers were not calculated into those numbers.
Okay, because I think if I understand, and I have to look at the numbers, I believe our 2024 numbers were greater than our 2023 numbers.
Yeah, like almost 10,000. I think it was 9,000 something.
Yeah, so if our numbers were if staffing was based on 2023 numbers and we've only gotten busier, then I'm having a hard time seeing how we reduce staff.
No, I guess maybe I'm not saying it right. The data submitted was based if I had the chart back up, I could probably tell you, but it was based on the 2023 numbers. It's submitted in early 2024. So your 2024 numbers don't even exist. So the numbers we submit and are awarded are based on that staffing number.
So with so to go off of that, with 2024 increasing, that comes back to what has prompted the questions from the board. With 2024 an increase and your numbers being based off of 2023 a lower number, what changes have been made or are any due to be made due to that increase?
Yeah, so you have to look at a 9,000 traffic option.
Is that significant
No,
enough?
it's not. I think I emailed that question. That is not significant from a staffing change point of view. So you would have to really look at it and say.
What is significant enough? What number
You
is
know, the
significant?
FAA contract is, I'll be honest with you, with all the budget cuts, it's been a little bit different this year. I mean, I have a place over in Texas right now, and they don't have hardly any of as much traffic you have, and they have about a 5,000 or 6,000. But we can submit it and be told no. It's not a problem being told no. As long as we show the justification. With the construction numbers going down, it's not a good time to try to go there. I think that, like I mentioned once before with Arwen, I said the 10-hour rule is probably, in my opinion, the best thing to look at for this year to get an extra body.
Let me ask you another way. Let's say we get past the construction at the airport. We get our runways done. We see the trend going up and the numbers increase.
And you submit it.
My question to you would be, if I'm asking you as a consultant with your experience to keep providing a safe airport for our community, when do you feel it would be justified? How would you answer that?
I would just give 3 to 4 months after that construction done and the increase goes into. Because I would go back and look at 2023 and show the 2024 increase and the newer increase of the construction being completed.
But you would want, I want to, hold on. If, I appreciate you saying that, my question is there a number that we could say, hey, we've seen this increase, do you feel this number justifies staffing? Because again, we want to provide safety as you do
Yeah,
under
I
your
don't
contract.
have a number in mind of what the increase is because I'm not the one approving such increase. It's the FAA. And what they do is they'll come back. Now, I will tell you, to be honest with you, but when I came on board in 2022, we had about 14 pending staffing increases requests, and they were not answered at all until fall of 2024, right before the fiscal year. And they were trying to hurry up. If there's CR in there, you're not going to have any increase on the CR. That's a fact. They won't even address it. And there's also the other pieces in the new contract, because trying to cut cost, is they have a clause in there, and it's your no staffing changes your first, third, and fifth year, and we're in the base year. So I'm sorry, staffing changes only in the first, third, and fifth year, and we're in the base year. The 10-hour rule is different because they changed the 10-hour rule, they changed the actual proposal. You have to address that.
So, Arvin, I would subject that that's where we just have to watch our safety record and watch incidents and pay attention to any incidents or any increases in incidents at the airport to where we can say, hey, to have a justification to say we're concerned about safety if there's anything that we notice, any changes due to that with our increased traffic, should it increase after the runways are done and the work is done, maybe we have more cause to make a statement to the FAA and to bring into question whether a change is needed for
I
staffing.
agree with that.
Fair?
Also, yeah, absolutely. I think that the tower, and Scott knows this, it's called a mandatory occurrence reporting system.
Mhm.
Cedar, I don't know if Erwin's ever seen it, but every time you have a board takeoff, go around, turbojet go around, anything that's unusual, they are supposed to enter that in the log, and it gets submitted to the FAA. And
What was that called again?
Mandatory occurrence reporting.
Mhm.
It's a MOR, is a common term for it. And that, there's multiple things of the FAA directives that everybody in that tower is supposed to enter that into Cedar, or the tool they use to enter it. It goes directly to the FAA, actually goes to the CO. I also get a copy of it for the safety event. So I did track a lot of safety events, and most safety events, because now RVA is a little different, because remember I mentioned we're ISO certified.
Correct.
If the safety event was caused by a controller, we have to come up with a correction performance action plan called a CPAR. And I don't know if he has any pending CPARs at all right now at New Smyrna. Now, if it's an airplane, whatever reasoning, and you can make up all the different reasons why an airplane doesn't take off or anything goes around or whatever wins,
So something that we could do, Jim, as a proactive environment, if we, once the work is done, if we notice an increase, we could request the MOR report. After we notice an increase, request the MOR report to see if there's any change. And we can request a previous one and a current one,
The MOR report is an individual event, but I can do
a
it.
period of time.
I can search periods of time.
Well, I would think we might want to consider just at some definitive period, 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is, when the construction is done and we're back to normal operations, that you guys commit to us to do a staffing review against those numbers in that scenario and come back and say,
Well, the FAA has to do the staffing review. We just submit the numbers to them. They're required by the FAA reauthorization to complete that review in collaboration with us, but we
Right.
submit the numbers to them. We
Right.
don't internalize the staffing review. I still strongly suggest that the 10-hour rule comes up first. It's probably your quickest action to get that body.
That was what we've got the 10-hour rule, we've got the construction that is going to be completed within a year,
No, it'll be completed
By-
within about
by the end of the
a couple
year.
months. Yeah,
by the end of the year.
by the end of the year, yes.
Yeah. So we've got the 10-hour rule, we've got the construction that's going to, I guess what I'm looking for is how do we get to a point where we as a board and the airport administrative team can be comfortable that our tower is appropriately staffed for what's going to be our norm going forward with operations?
I'm going to be careful. I don't think it's not appropriately staffed, but that's opinion, I suppose. But I would say my recommendation to your question would be you have parallel courses. You have the 10-hour rule, because we don't know when the FAA is going to tell us to start assessing that. We've been doing it anyway. And then you have the non-construction period. When you see the non-construction period start being stopped, you said 2 or 3 months, I would start gathering traffic count for 2 or 3 months. And then we can use that increase and look at the 2023 to 2024 end of year and use that as a justification.
So then,
And then the FAA would have
Arvin,
to
what I would
approve
say is what we do is first quarter of next year, with all projects complete, look at the numbers, possibly request the MOR report at that time, right? Because I want you to be profitable. I want you to run a good business. I want to save tower. I want to save community. But to the information he's provided, I think it's best if we table that until we have accurate information to where we can say, hey, there's a concern, here's why. If there's no concern, then we don't need to go digging if there's no reason to have a
Since you
concern.
wrote the letter, there's not been one concern of safety that I'm aware of from an air traffic side of the house, unless I'm not aware of something.
Okay. Okay.
I really appreciate your presentation.
Thank you for your
and answering
invite.
the
I do
questions.
appreciate it. No.
Any other questions?
No, I just was going to say that, really, everything's been answered. My kind of boiled down what the concern is there a system, and I know with the controllers that if there's a problem, they have to report it. But I feel much better now that there is a system in place that looks at all of that, and so it's kind of an ongoing program that says
Oh, yeah.
staffing is part of the problem
I came on
here.
board and I was down in Tuscaloosa and there was a safety incident and I went down and I met everyone and I actually met the FPO operator and different folks and I found out they were not reporting MORs. The whole facility was not. So I started dumping all the content we had and started picking out. And I do it periodically. I'll be honest with you all, I take audio. If I hear anything squirrely to me, I'll get his boss and I'll say, I personally want to hear the audio. I have an FA computer at my desk. I'll look at replays. I look at all the stuff because it's important to me that we are always moving in that safety direction.
Arvin, it almost sounds like we have to be proactive as an airport for the FAA. If that, I mean,
Yeah.
am I right in that assumption? We need to be proactive to make sure that we don't have those concerns, and
Yeah.
that there's not
I think that's
something
what
being
we're
missed.
doing. We're doing right now. We're having this discussion, and I can just tell you that I'm looking at the numbers since 2009, and the numbers are trending up and up and up and up. They really don't go down. I mean, so if 2023, you bid the numbers based on the activity that year, and the numbers continue to go up. So that's what I still don't understand is were we overstaffed? I don't know that I got an answer to that question. Are we overstaffed before?
I don't know what you, if you feel like overstaff was. According to our calculation, the answer would be yes at the time. But you got to remember, the ATM was not working the full .25. You have to look at all the factors. You can't just say we lost a full body, because you really didn't lose a full body. You lost a fractional body. And that fractional body wasn't even working the full fraction. So that's the difference you have to look at.
So how many hours a week
I'd
did we
have
lose?
to really dig up
Yeah.
all those numbers. And he's a great guy. You can ask him. You can ask the guy behind me. They'll tell you he rarely worked at all. So,
I think what we have to do
But it's
is
okay.
we have to get the numbers first quarter next year. We request MOR. We look at, are there any concerns? And if there are concerns, we have to be proactive to address it with FAA through the
And
contractor.
I can give
but
you the
provide-
FAA contact if you want to go directly to FAA. It's
Yeah,
fine.
we've got that.
Yeah.
We've got it.
Jennifer Elson.
Steve, we appreciate you coming very much. This has been a learning experience for all of us. We'll have to go from here and kind of decide what our next steps are going to be for this. We know what you've shared with us, I think, what you can about, from your perspective. But we will get together and caucus a little bit and
And
come
if
up
you guys
with.
all believe you think that we're wrong and you want to change now, then let's write it up and justify it.
I think we got to have the data, Steve. Like, numbers don't lie, people always say numbers don't lie, people do. We've got to have the data, and I think we'll be able to accumulate that. I think Arvin's concerns are valid, and the numbers are increasing. We see a trend. Our concern is being ahead of the trend before there's an issue. And that's
what we
all we
look
want
at
to
is
do.
the safety issue. We look at the cost, overtime going up. That's what we look at from a company point of view, not just, how many bodies. Because there's two
Understand.
positions. There's two positions. And people have to remember that sometimes.
Okay,
Thank you, guys.
Thank you
Really
very
appreciate
much.
your time.
Thank you.
appreciate it. Okay, that brings us up to public input. I know that we've got some folks that came up earlier and indicated they would like to speak. Just for guidance, this is a monologue, not a dialogue. You're going to come up and present your concern or your issue or whatever, and you'll have 3 minutes. I'm going to turn the clock on in just a minute, but when you come up, if you would come up and introduce yourself and give us your name and where you live, your address, so that we can have that for the record. And you're welcome to come up now if you'd like.
This is all new for me, so I'm a little nervous, but good afternoon. I'm Marlene White, and my husband Ray and myself are new residents living near the airport. And we live at 2209 Turnbull Bay Road, directly across from the Park Pier and the AFW. We've been living here about a year. I'm a retired psychologist. We wanted to express our concern about the frequency and the intensity of plane noise over our neighborhood, especially from repetitive flight training operations. Planes start flying earlier than 7 a.m. and continue later than 11 p.m., with aircraft sometimes flying one after another in rapid sequence directly overhead and at low altitudes. There's a jet that comes in about 3 times a week, and that's truly terrifying. It's almost right over our roof on most occasions. As I said, they start early, and it makes it difficult to enjoy our homes, hold conversations, and even sleep on some evenings. We support the efforts to upgrade the voluntary noise abatement program, but we would urge you to go further and restrict repetitive training flights and have them between 8 and 6. It's probably a pipe dream. Prohibit low passes and tight circuits over residential areas, and make sure the noise guidelines are consistently followed and enhanced. So we're saying, please prioritize the quality of our life and those living under these flight paths. But thank you for your time and your service.
Thank you.
And my husband just has one word because he's been doing an empirical study on this, so he's Ray.
Okay? start the clock again for you. I'm sorry, I got your wife's name, I missed yours.
Yes, I do have a few notes, but I'm going to put them aside because time is getting short.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just going to read a few statistics. Now, we're complaining about the noise and the frequency of the flights. So this morning, I sat in my lounge and I timed and numbered all the flights that came over from 7:30 until 8:43. There were 24 flights from 7 to 8 and 24 flights 8 to 9. And some of the flights were 60 seconds apart. I don't think that would be it is a safety issue. If the plane in front would have, I'm sorry, but I've had 3 strokes, so I'm not, everything a little bit, so bear with me. So the plane 60 seconds behind another one. I could see them both coming up one. If the first plane had any engine trouble, he would crash into the plane. The time differences, they're just too close. So 50 flights in 2 hours is an awful lot for us to bear. Because their planes are taking off, they go full throttle because they have to get high. And when the jet comes over, the house almost shakes. The flights do continue all day. They change the flight pattern on runway about midday. So in the morning, we get all the planes taking off. In the afternoon, we get all the planes coming to land. So it's double that.
You've
And
got
the
about
flight-
15 seconds left.
Yeah, okay. Just give it as much consideration as you can, because it's very difficult to lead a very relaxed and happy time.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Thank you.
for
Thank you,
sharing
sir.
your experience with us. We appreciate that. Is there anyone else that would like to make public comment?
Yes, I'm Cynthia Radigan. I live in Terra Trail. You all seen me year in and year out for quite a lot of years. For 21 and a half years. And for 20 and a half years, I've been here showing up saying, we got a problem. Ever since that tower got put in, we've got a noise and air pollution issue. Our number of operations went from maybe 25, 30,000 a year to 180,000 a year. That's a huge increase. That's a lot of planes over our homes. Unfortunately, my house happens to be right where every single runway off of this airport crisscrosses. And for some reason, the coordinates for all of those planes for every runway seems to somehow intersect over the top of my house. It's a real problem. Something needs to be done. And we've been complaining about it for years and years and years. We've had a noise study done. We've had a follow-up noise study done. And everybody said, oh, there's not a noise problem. That's because those people aren't living under the 550 to 700 planes a day taken off over that airport and then turning around and coming back and landing over top of your house. It is incessant. It's ridiculous how much every aspect of our life is being impacted. Our quality of life is diminished. it's impacting our health and our well-being, and you all just seem to, it just keeps getting pushed off till, well, the next meeting, and then the next meeting, and then the next meeting, and year goes by, and another year goes by, and another year goes by. You spend a ton of money on upgrading the airport, but nobody's done anything about resurrecting a noise abatement committee or a task force or even a good neighbor committee to oversee what's happening. The airport tower, the FAA people or whoever's running the tower, the airport manager's office, the airport advisory board, and most certainly the flight schools are all here to govern themselves. You all make decisions that satisfy your needs, but you're not looking at the needs of the citizens. You're all here to look out for the best interest of the airport businesses. Of course, that's what you should be doing. The airport manager's office is there to run and manage the airport, which is what they should be doing. Epic Aviation and Embry-Riddle and all the flight schools, they take care of their business, which is what they should be doing. But there's nobody in the middle saying, hey, wait a minute. Who's looking out for the people who live here, who pay the taxes to live here? The people that have been living here since before the tower went up. Who's looking out for us? Do any of you care about how it's impacted our quality of life?
Ms. Radigan, thank you for coming. Your 3 minutes are up. Thank you for...
And if you want to say that there's been any diminishing of the traffic since all of the work been going on out there, it hasn't. They just moved it over to another runway, which still comes over our neighborhood and over my house. I think we should put together a committee to try to get some relief.
Ms. Radigan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate your comments. This is probably going to end it for us for the day. We've got another meeting at 6:30, so you go ahead, introduce yourself and...
Sure thing. Shane Williams, the Director of Flight Operations for Epic Flight Academy here at New Smyrna Beach. First off, just wanted to say thank you for the presentation and for all of the information. Thought it was very, very interesting. Arvin, I share concerns similar to you as well, that one number is going one way and the other number may be going the opposite direction. I've always been also a believer that you can't run a company and make all the decisions off spreadsheets, right? Is anyone talking to the controllers in the tower, and is there an increased level of fatigue in picking up shifts and things like that? There's no doubt the instructor body, the student body at Epic definitely feels there has been a slight decline in services and safety, forgetting who is where in the traffic pattern, what's assigned to what. Those have all been, signified to us internally that there's been an increase in that. So very, very happy to hear that things can be changed if needed, and that that is an option. And I think at this point, what I hear is we just have to collect data, right? Yes. And collect data. I believe it was mentioned MOR, or things that have to be reported and things like that. So I'm going to go back to my desk and really try to collect that data to be able to possibly present at the next meeting or when that time comes. So that if there is a change that's needed, we have the data to back it. I just worry because in that data could be something that goes wrong, right? Yes, we need to go and get it, but between now and collecting that data when that time is, what if something does go wrong and it can cause or it can be signified from what we're talking about today? That's just my only concern, and I feel it's a little reactive, but if that's what we have to do to provide the data, to get the data and make a change, there's no doubt Epic would be very happy to work with the airport and with the advisory board to provide that. And if there is a change that's needed, we'll move forward with it. So thank you guys as always.
Thanks, Shane. Shane, we appreciate you being here and always appreciate your comments. Arvin, I think we're going to have to close it down for today. Can we somehow maybe pick up on the updates, the airport manager updates at our next meeting?
Yes, we can do that. I will just tell you really briefly that construction projects are headed in the right direction. We've got quite a few updates. We'll see if we can't post some of those to our website, Facebook. So thank you very much for everyone coming out. Thank you again to RVA for coming and answering. I know there were some tough questions there. And No, I appreciate everybody being here, and we'll just look forward to getting together next time.
Okay, I think that's a good idea. We can look at what we have that we're not able to go over today because of the time constraints. And we'll see where we can post that appropriate, whether it's on our website or the city website or whatever. Okay, we'll look at what we can provide an update on. Okay, with that, the next meeting, I believe, is October 27th at 5 p.m.
Correct.
in this room, okay? And with that, I'm going to close the meeting.